When a constructor has only one parameter, it can be used to provide implicit type conversion. The explicit function modifier prevents this behavior. Here I have a working copy of implicit.explicit.cpp from Chapter 4 of the exercise files. It contains this class here. It's maybe a partial class. It's really just for illustration purposes. Perhaps it's the beginnings of a string class or something. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get the size of a string. And so I have two constructors here. You notice these are constructors because they're named the same as the class. And one of them takes an int and one of them takes a character string. And what they do is the int one simply copies the value of the int into this size data member. And the character string one, it calculates the length of the string by looking for the null terminator at the end of the string. And they both check against this max size constant to make sure that the value isn't too big. And so here's my first constructor. It simply checks the max size constant and it assigns the value from n. And you notice it has this little string that it prints out to show which constructor is being called. And then we have this other one. This is the one that takes the C string and it looks for the null terminator at the end of the string and then it assigns the size. There's also this getter called size that returns the value so that we can inspect it. And down here in our main, I'm constructing an object called S from the strSize class. And I'm also calling this function that accepts a strSize object as its parameter. And now watch what happens when I build and run this. I'm passing both of them an X in single quotes, which is actually a character and not a string. And so when I build and run, you notice my value is 120, which is not necessarily something that I'm expecting. What that is this X character converted to an integer value. And that happens to be the integer value of the character X, because characters naturally promote to integers and larger scalar values. And so what's happening here is an implicit conversion. An implicit conversion happens when you assign a value to an object during construction. And so that value, if possible, will get converted using a constructor that's available that it can promote to. So in both of these cases, you'll see the size from int constructor is getting called because we have that message in our constructor. And that's not necessarily what I meant. I probably meant to put double quotes on this, right? Because that's a really common error, isn't it? And now when I build and run, I get a size of 1, which is the length of that string. And you notice the constructor that's getting called is my C string constructor, because that string is actually what's expected by this C string constructor. So this is all happening because I've allowed this implicit type conversion to happen. If I put the explicit keyword here, it changes this constructor to an explicit constructor, and it will no longer allow that implicit assignment. In fact, I can put it here as well. And now implicit conversions are no longer allowed. When I try to build and run, you'll see I already have these errors here. It says no viable conversion, and this one here says no matching function call. So the implicit conversion is also happening on the function call because it's expecting this object type and it's getting something else. And so it's trying to do that implicit conversion, but there's no constructor that allows it. So this can operate as a safeguard. In fact, now in order to construct the object, I need to do it explicitly by putting the parameter in parentheses. And even here, I need to actually create an object, which I can do saying strSize and putting parentheses here, and that'll create a temporary object that'll get passed to this function call. And now both of these work, and they're constructing from the C string. And if I want to use an integer here, I can put in a 7 here and put in a 5 here. And now when I build and run, you see I'm getting my size from int constructor. So sometimes the implicit type conversion is okay, and sometimes it's not. For my part, I really like using the explicit keyword, and it prevents me from necessarily doing something that I didn't intend.